Liam stood in the dimly lit chamber, his eyes scanning the intricate designs that adorned the alien walls. It was his first time stepping inside the palace of the Zerasi, a race of highly advanced and proud beings who controlled the heart of the galaxy. The walls were smooth, made of a strange silvery metal that shimmered with a faint glow, as if the palace itself was alive. It was nothing like the human ships and stations Liam was used to, yet there was something about it that felt oddly familiar. The meeting was supposed to be diplomatic, nothing more than a brief exchange of information, a handshake between two different cultures. But now, as he found himself alone with the Princess Zariha, the situation felt like something entirely different. Zariha was standing by the massive window that offered a breathtaking view of the planet below. Her long, silver hair cascaded down her back in perfect waves. She wore a simple yet elegant gown that shimmered with the colors of the cosmos, making her look like a celestial being. She was everything the stories had described: strong, intelligent, and above all untouchable. Liam couldn't help but feel out of place. He was just a soldier, a human in an alien world, tasked with maintaining peace. He had been trained for combat, strategy, and survival, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. As the princess turned to face him, her piercing violet eyes locked onto his and a cold smile curled on her lips. "So this is how the humans think of peace," Zariha said, her voice smooth yet edged with a tone of superiority. "You send your best soldier to keep the peace with us? Do you really? Think you can change centuries of tension in just a few days?" Liam blinked, taken aback by her sharp words. He had been expecting some sort of formal greeting, not this. But he had been briefed on her reputation: stubborn, defiant, and fiercely proud of her people. The tension in the room was thick, and Liam had to force himself to steady his breathing. "I don't think it's about changing centuries of tension all at once," he replied, trying to remain calm. "It's about taking small steps, working together. That's all we're here to do." Zariha raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. She took a few steps closer, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, making the room feel even colder. "Small steps," she repeated as if testing the words in her mouth. "And what if I don't want to take those steps? What if I'd rather remain in control of my people, without the interference of humans?" Liam was about to answer when a voice suddenly broke the tension. "You do realize that you are not the only one who has been forced into alliances, right?" The voice came from Zariha's personal assistant, a small, tech-savvy alien who had been observing from the corner of the room. Zariha's gaze flicked toward him, and for a moment, Liam thought he saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. "You should know, Princess," Liam began again, trying to keep his tone light. "I'm not here to force anything. I'm here to help." "Help?" Zariha scoffed. "With all due respect, human, we didn't ask for your help. You may have been sent here by your leaders, but I don't need you telling me what's best for my people." The silence that followed felt heavy. Liam wasn't sure what to say next, but it was clear that this conversation wasn't going anywhere. Just as he was about to excuse himself, he found himself muttering a sentence he hadn't meant to say. "Maybe it's you who's making this harder than it has to be," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Zariha froze, her eyes widening in surprise. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The words hung in the air like a challenge, daring her to respond. Zariha's face turned from surprise to an amused smirk. "Oh, I see," she said, her voice taking on a mocking tone. "So, now you're giving me advice? You're telling me how to do my job?" Liam realized his mistake, his face flushing with embarrassment. "No, that's not what I meant. He was cut off as Zariha laughed, a sound that echoed through the chamber. It wasn't cruel or mocking, but a genuine laugh, as if the absurdity of the situation had caught her off guard. "You're making me your wife? Seriously?" she said, half amused, half shocked. It was a strange combination of disbelief and humor, as if the thought itself was ridiculous. Liam's eyes widened, his heart skipping a beat. "What?" Zariha tilted her head, her violet eyes gleaming. I was merely saying if your people insist on forcing human alliances, maybe I should just marry you. I mean, you've already decided that humans are the solution to all our problems, haven't you? Liam opened his mouth, but no words came out. The absurdity of it all caught him completely off guard. He had meant to say something serious, something that could help ease the tension, but now he found himself in a strange, awkward silence. Zariha, however, seemed to enjoy the moment of discomfort she had created. "Don't worry, human," she said, her voice softening just a bit. "I'm only joking, but you see, this is the issue. You come into our world thinking you can fix things, but we don't need fixing." Liam swallowed hard. I didn't mean to offend you." Zariha's smirk faded slightly as she stepped closer to him. "You didn't offend me, human. You just surprised me. You see, in my world, marriage is a serious matter. It's not something you joke about." And with that, the tension in the room shifted. The princess wasn't as untouchable as she seemed. She wasn't just a distant figure in her palace. She was real. And for the first time, Liam wondered if there was more to this mission than he had ever expected. The morning after their unexpected exchange, Liam found himself pacing through the corridors of the royal palace. The events from the previous day felt like a blur. His words, the princess's laughter, the awkwardness that followed. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything about this mission was spiraling out of control. But it wasn't just the awkwardness between him and Princess Zariha that was bothering him. There was something much bigger at play. Liam had been assigned to the royal palace as part of a diplomatic mission, but he quickly realized it was not just about peace. The Zerasi Empire was on the brink of turmoil, and everyone seemed to be scrambling for control. The princess, though strong and intelligent, was fighting a battle she wasn't sure she could win. As he walked down the ornate hallways, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility he had been unknowingly thrust into. The palace was abuzz with whispers. Ministers, soldiers, and advisors moved in and out of rooms with urgency in their steps. No one seemed to be paying attention to Liam, but he could feel the tension in the air. Something was wrong, and he had to find out what. "Human," a voice called out. It was the voice of Daxon, Zariha's chief advisor and an elder of the Zerasi race. His long silver hair fell to his waist, and his sharp, calculating eyes seemed to see through Liam as though he were transparent. "The princess would like to see you." Liam nodded, pushing his unease aside. He followed Daxon through a series of narrow corridors until they reached a large chamber. The room was unlike anything Liam had seen before, a mix of ancient alien design and futuristic technology, a place that felt both timeless and ahead of its time. Zariha stood by a large table, surrounded by maps and holographic displays of the galaxy. Her eyes were focused, studying the shifting borders of the empire. She didn't turn when Liam entered, but her voice was calm yet serious. "Liam, I need your help," Zariha said without preamble. Liam was taken aback by the shift in tone. Gone was the teasing and the playful sarcasm from yesterday. In its place was the voice of someone burdened with more than they could carry. "What's going on?" Liam asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Zariha sighed, finally turning to face him. There was a heaviness in her eyes, something that spoke of a long-running struggle. "My enemies are growing stronger. The rebellion I've been trying to contain is no longer just a small faction of radicals. It's a full-scale movement now. They're gaining support from inside the empire, from members of my own family." Liam frowned, trying to grasp the depth of the situation. "Your own family?" Zariha nodded. "Yes. Prince Verdun, my cousin, has always been a thorn in my side. He's ambitious and power-hungry, and he's convinced that the only way to secure peace in the empire is through a marriage alliance. To him, I am just a pawn, a tool to be used, but I won't let him take what is mine." She paused, her gaze hardening. "And this is where you come in, Liam. I need your help to stop Verdun. The political pressures are mounting, and soon I'll have no choice but to make a decision that will change everything." Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He had thought his mission was to simply observe, maybe offer support. But now, he was being pulled into something far bigger. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a key player in a game he didn't fully understand. I don't know how much help I can be, Liam admitted. I'm not a diplomat or a politician, I'm just a soldier. Zariha smiled faintly, a bitter edge to her expression. Sometimes, soldiers are the ones who change the course of history, Liam. You've seen what your people can do. I need you to use that same determination to help me. Liam swallowed, his mind racing. He had trained for combat, for battle. But this was different. The stakes were much higher. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about protecting someone who didn't want his help in the first place. So, what exactly do you need me to do? Liam asked, bracing himself for the answer. Zariha's eyes gleamed with purpose. I need you to infiltrate Prince Verdun's ranks. He's planning something that could shift the balance of power in the Empire. I need to know what he's up to before it's too late. Liam didn't hesitate. I'll do it, he said, determination flooding his veins. But how am I supposed to get close to him? He's not exactly going to trust a human soldier. Zariha's gaze softened. That's where the marriage comes in. Liam blinked, taken aback. Marriage? Zariha's eyes hardened again. Yes. I've been advised that the best way to solidify alliances and gain favor among my people is through marriage. Verdun believes that if he can force me into an arranged marriage, he will have control over the Empire. If I agree to marry him, he wins. But if I refuse, it could mean civil war. Liam could see the conflict in her eyes, the way her pride battled with her duty. And what if you didn't marry him? Liam asked softly. Zariha's voice was low, almost a whisper. Then I would lose everything. My throne, my people, my future. The weight of her words hung in the air. Liam realized just how much was at stake, not just for Zariha, but for everyone. He could see that she wasn't just a princess caught in the game of politics. She was a leader, struggling to protect everything she held dear. So, I guess that's where I come in, Liam said, his voice firm. I'll help you. Zariha nodded, her expression serious. I knew you would. But remember, Liam, this is bigger than you or me. The fate of the Empire rests on what we do next. Liam's heart raced again. He had no idea how deep this political game went, but one thing was clear. He was in it now, and there was no turning back. Liam stood outside the royal chambers, his hand resting lightly on the door. He had only just arrived in the palace a few days ago, but it felt like weeks. The mission was becoming more complex with each passing hour. What had started as a simple peacekeeping assignment had turned into a game of politics, deception, and alliances. Now it seemed he was caught in the middle of a battle for the throne. His thoughts were interrupted as the door opened, and Zariha emerged. She was dressed in her usual attire, flowing robes that shimmered like the stars themselves. But her eyes were different. They were not the cold, calculating eyes of the princess he had first met, but something softer, more contemplative. Liam, Zariha greeted him, her voice calm but with an edge of weariness. I was hoping you would come. We need to talk. Liam nodded, stepping inside. The room was dimly lit, filled with holographic maps of the galaxy, along with stacks of ancient scrolls and reports. Despite the advanced technology, there was something almost nostalgic about the room, like it held the history of an entire civilization. Zariha had made it her command center, and in many ways it reflected her strength and determination. What is it? Liam asked, trying to mask the unease he felt. He had seen the weight of the Empire's future in Zariha's eyes the day before, and it hadn't left him since. I've received troubling news, Zariha said, pacing slowly as she spoke. Prince Verdun is moving faster than I anticipated. He's already made alliances with several key military commanders. If we don't act soon, I fear we'll lose control of the Empire. Liam listened intently. There was no time to waste. He could see how much pressure Zariha was under, the responsibility of an entire civilization on her shoulders. But there was something more he noticed as he watched her. There was a vulnerability hidden beneath her composed exterior, a side of her he hadn't seen before. I'm ready, Liam said. I'll do whatever it takes. Zariha stopped pacing and looked at him, her eyes locking onto his. For a brief moment, they stood in silence. It wasn't just the weight of their mission that hung in the air, it was something else. A quiet understanding that had slowly begun to develop between them. Liam had known from the beginning that their relationship would be complicated. She was a princess, a ruler of a mighty empire, and he was just a soldier, a pawn in a larger game. Yet, over the course of their brief partnership, he had come to admire her strength, her resilience, and the fire that burned in her eyes. She wasn't just a royal figure. She was someone who fought for what she believed in, no matter the cost. And in some strange way, Liam found himself drawn to her. He had spent his life following orders, never questioning the bigger picture. But now with Zariha, he was starting to see things differently. For the first time, he wasn't just a soldier. He was part of something that could change the future of an entire galaxy. Zariha broke the silence, her voice quieter now. I know this mission has been difficult for you, Liam. You didn't sign up for any of this. Liam shrugged, trying to keep his emotions in check. I'm here now. I've made my choice. Zariha's eyes softened, and for a moment, she looked less like a powerful princess and more like a person caught in a storm. Thank you, she whispered. Liam didn't know what to say. Her gratitude caught him off guard. He had only been doing his job, yet there was something about the way she spoke that made him feel as if he had done something much more important than simply following orders. They both stood there for a moment, their eyes meeting, as if searching for something unspoken. Finally, Zariha turned away, returning to the map she had been studying. I'm afraid I've underestimated how dangerous Verdun truly is. He's not just after the throne, he's after the entire galaxy. If he wins, there will be no peace. Liam stepped closer, looking at the holographic display. The galaxy's borders were shifting, alliances were forming, and Verdun's forces were growing stronger. It was a game of power and control, and Zariha was caught in the middle. Then we'll stop him, Liam said, determination clear in his voice. Together. Zariha glanced at him, her eyes betraying a flicker of something deeper than mere appreciation. There was a connection forming between them, something neither of them had expected but both seemed to recognize. I never wanted this, Zariha said quietly, her gaze fixed on the galaxy map before her. I never wanted to play this game of politics to be forced into alliances and marriages. But now it seems I have no choice. If I don't act quickly, my empire will crumble. Liam stepped forward, placing a hand on the table, his fingers lightly brushing against hers. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt through both of them. Zariha looked up, surprised, and for the first time since he had met her, Liam saw the walls around her begin to crack. You don't have to do this alone, Liam said softly, his voice steady. We'll figure this out together. Zariha looked at him, her eyes searching his face as if looking for a sign that he truly meant it. After a long moment, she nodded, her expression softer than it had ever been before. I never thought I would have someone like you by my side, Liam. You've proven me wrong. Liam smiled faintly. I guess that's what I do. They both stood there for a moment, neither saying anything, but understanding the gravity of the situation. The road ahead would not be easy. The stakes were higher than either of them had anticipated. But one thing was certain, they were no longer just allies by circumstance. They were partners in a cause that would shape the future of both their worlds. As Liam looked at Zariha, he realized that whatever happened next, they would face it together. It was no longer just about the mission. It was about something deeper, a bond that was forming, quietly and unexpectedly, between two people who had once thought they had nothing in common. The days after their conversation were filled with tension. The Empire's politics were shifting, and the pressure on Princess Zariha had only increased. Liam could feel it in the air every time they passed through the corridors of the palace, the looks of doubt and fear that followed them. Whispers of rebellion were spreading, and every new report they received seemed to confirm their worst fears. The threat from within the Empire was real. Liam sat in the war room late one evening, studying the holographic displays of the galaxy. Zariha had asked him to stay close, and he had agreed without hesitation. Though he was here to help, he also couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was at play, something none of them had fully understood yet. Zariha walked into the room, her footsteps silent but steady. She looked tired, but there was an intensity in her gaze that spoke volumes. The rebellion, her cousin Prince Verdun, and his growing power, everything was moving faster than she had predicted. It was clear that time was running out. "Liam," she said, her voice low but urgent, "I've just received word that Verdun has reached out to a few of the most powerful military commanders in the Empire. They're aligning with him." Liam stood up, his hand instinctively resting on his sidearm. "How many commanders?" he asked, his mind already calculating the possibilities. Zariha turned toward the holographic display, showing the territories under Verdun's influence. A dozen at least, and more could join him. If he gains control of the military, there's no stopping him. Liam's thoughts raced. The Empire was vast, and Verdun's reach was expanding quickly. He knew Zariha couldn't fight him alone, not with just a handful of loyal supporters, but Liam had seen the strength in Zariha's resolve. She wasn't the kind of leader to give up without a fight. "We need to get ahead of this," Liam said, his voice firm. "You can't wait for him to strike. We need to make the first move." Zariha's eyes locked onto his, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I was planning to hold off, but you're right. We don't have time. If we don't act now, Verdun will have the military on his side and I'll have nothing." Liam's mind was already racing, formulating a plan. If we can cut off Verdun's allies before they can gather full support, we might be able to prevent him from getting the upper hand. We need to expose his intentions before he can put his plan into motion. Zariha glanced at the map, then back at him. "We need information. I've been trying to figure out his next move, but he's always 2 steps ahead of me. He's using his connections to manipulate the military, but there's something else, I can feel it. He's planning something more personal." Liam raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean, personal?" Zariha hesitated, as if unsure how much to reveal. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think he's planning to make a move on me, force me into that marriage he's been talking about. If I agree, he secures control over the Empire. If I don't, he'll use that as an excuse to wage war. Either way, he wins." Liam frowned, a cold knot forming in his stomach. "He's playing a dangerous game." Zariha's expression hardened. "He's not playing, Liam. He's winning." The weight of her words hung in the air. Zariha wasn't just fighting for the throne. She was fighting for her freedom, her people, and everything she had worked for. She couldn't afford to lose, and Liam knew that he couldn't let her do it alone. "We need to move quickly," Liam said, his voice more determined than ever. "If we can find out who's feeding Verdun information, we can neutralize him before he has a chance to make his move." Zariha nodded, her eyes darkening with determination. "I've already started investigating, but I don't trust anyone in the palace anymore. There are spies everywhere, even in my inner circle." Liam's expression softened. He could see the toll it was taking on her, being surrounded by uncertainty, not knowing who to trust. He had his own suspicions about the palace's loyalty, but now wasn't the time to discuss them. "We'll work together," Liam said, stepping closer. "I'll help you uncover the truth, and we'll stop him before it's too late." Zariha's eyes flicked up to meet his, and for a moment the tension between them felt different. It wasn't just about the mission anymore. There was something more, an understanding that had grown between them, something neither had expected. In this uncertain time, they had found an unexpected ally in each other. "Thank you," Zariha whispered, her voice softer than it had been before. "I know, I'm asking a lot of you." Liam smiled slightly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You're not asking for anything. I'm in this with you. Whatever happens, we do this together." The next few days were a blur of strategy meetings, covert operations, and urgent messages. They moved quickly, gathering intel on Verdun's forces and working to expose the traitors in Zariha's court. It wasn't easy, and every step forward seemed to bring new obstacles. But with every moment that passed, Zariha and Liam grew closer, their bond strengthening as they shared the weight of their mission. Then, one evening, they received the news they had been dreading. Verdun had made his move. He had secured an alliance with the commander of the Royal Guard, and together they were marching toward the capital. "We're running out of time," Zariha said, her voice tight with urgency. "If we don't stop him now, everything we've worked for will be lost." Liam looked at her, his resolve hardening. "We won't let that happen. We'll fight. We'll protect this empire." Zariha nodded, a fire returning to her eyes. "We fight together, Liam, for the future of my people." The final battle was coming, and this time they would not let the empire fall without a fight. The tension in the air was palpable. Liam could feel it as he walked through the palace, the quiet before the storm settling over everything. Zariha was on edge, her every move precise, calculated. It was a dangerous time for the empire, and with every passing hour things were slipping further from her control. The alliance with Verdun's forces was official now. The commander of the Royal Guard, Commander Rathar, had pledged his loyalty to Prince Verdun. News of this betrayal had spread like wildfire, and now, Zariha was forced to take drastic action. She could no longer sit back and wait for the rebellion to unfold. She had to act. Liam knew it was coming. He had been preparing himself for days, but the reality of the situation still hit hard. He had trained for combat, for situations just like this one, but he had never fought in a battle where so much was at stake. The fate of an entire empire rested on the next few hours. "I've been thinking," Zariha said as they stood together in the war room, looking at the map of the empire. The glow of the holographic display cast a soft light over her face, revealing the strain in her eyes. "We have no choice but to fight. If Verdun takes the capital, it will be the end of everything. We'll lose the throne, and the empire will fall into chaos." Liam nodded. "We'll make our stand here," he said, pointing to the central region of the map. "If we can take control of the capital's outer defenses, we can push back Verdun's forces. It won't be easy, but it's our best shot." Zariha's gaze hardened. She wasn't one to back down. If anything, she was more determined than ever. "I'll rally my loyal commanders. We'll hold the line." Liam watched her for a moment. She was strong, but even the strongest leaders needed support, and that's what he was here for, to stand by her side when the time came. He had no idea how this would end, but he knew one thing. He would fight for her, for the empire, and for the future they both wanted to see. In the hours that followed, the palace was transformed into a war room. Soldiers and advisors moved quickly, preparing the defenses, organizing battle plans, and securing weapons. Zariha worked tirelessly, coordinating everything with precision. Despite the mounting pressure, she remained calm, her leadership qualities shining through. As night fell, the sound of marching feet echoed outside the palace walls. Verdun's army was approaching, and the first wave of soldiers had already begun to surround the capital. Zariha gathered her commanders in the grand hall. Liam was there standing at her side, his hand resting on his weapon, ready for whatever came next. "We've trained for this moment," Zariha said, addressing the room. "We will not surrender. We will not let Verdun take this empire. Tonight, we fight for everything we've built." Her words were met with nods of agreement. The commanders were ready to fight, to protect their princess and their empire. But the real test would come when the battle began. Liam moved toward the door, his eyes scanning the preparations outside. The first wave of Verdun's forces had arrived, their weapons raised, their intentions clear. But Liam wasn't afraid. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for freedom, for the future of an entire people. Zariha joined him outside, her presence commanding. She had changed into her battle armor, the shining metal reflecting the light of the setting sun. She looked every bit the warrior, She was ready to defend her kingdom with everything she had. "Are you ready?" Liam asked, his voice steady. Zariha looked at him, her eyes burning with determination. "I've been ready for this my whole life. Let's make sure Verdun knows that this empire belongs to me." The first clash of swords and energy weapons was deafening. The palace's outer walls shook as Verdun's forces attacked with full force. Liam and Zariha's forces stood firm, their weapons at the ready. The battle had begun. Liam found himself on the front lines, his heart racing as he fought alongside Zariha's soldiers. The enemies came at them in waves, their faces twisted in anger and desperation. But Liam didn't hesitate. He fought with precision, each strike deliberate and focused. Every move was calculated. He had been trained for this, but there was something different now. The stakes were higher. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for a cause, for a future that was worth protecting. Zariha was a force of nature on the battlefield. Her leadership was clear as she moved through her troops, shouting orders and encouraging them to fight harder. She was everywhere, leading by example, and her soldiers followed her without question. Liam could see the respect they had for her, the loyalty that had been earned through years of strong leadership. But despite their best efforts, Verdun's forces kept coming. The battle raged on, the sound of weapons clashing and soldiers shouting, filling the air. Liam's muscles burned with exhaustion, but he kept fighting. Every time he thought they had pushed back the enemy, more soldiers would arrive, reinforcing Verdun's assault. Then, as the sun began to rise over the battlefield, a new wave of fighters appeared. Liam's heart sank as he saw who was leading them. Commander Rathar, the man who had betrayed Zariha. He stood at the front of his troops, his face a mask of cold determination. Liam gritted his teeth. This wasn't just a battle, it was personal now. Rathar had been one of the few people Zariha had trusted, and now he was leading the charge against her. It was a bitter twist of fate. Zariha appeared at Liam's side, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Rathar's forces will be the hardest to break. We need to stop him before he can take the palace." Liam nodded. He had a plan, but it would take everything they had. They couldn't afford to fail. This was the moment that would decide everything. "Let's finish this," Liam said, his eyes steely with resolve. Together they charged forward, leading the final assault. This battle would determine the future of the empire, and they were going to fight until the very end. The battle had raged through the night, and now, with the first rays of dawn, the war outside seemed to slow. But the storm inside the palace had only just begun. Zariha stood near the window, her gaze focused on the rising sun, the golden light reflecting off the distant battlefield. The sounds of clashing swords and energy blasts were still faintly audible in the background. But inside the war room there was only silence. Liam watched her from across the room, sensing the weight on her shoulders. She had led her forces with bravery, never once hesitating in the face of danger. But now, with the battle on a knife's edge, she was no longer just a princess. She was a ruler, and the decision she had to make could change everything. "You're quiet," Liam said softly, his voice breaking the stillness. Zariha didn't turn to face him. She simply stared out at the battlefield, her expression unreadable. "I'm not quiet," she replied, her tone heavy. "I'm thinking. I'm deciding." Liam stepped closer, not sure what to say. He could sense that something was different about her now. There was a tension in her demeanor, a deep struggle that had nothing to do with the fighting outside. "What are you deciding?" he asked. Zariha finally turned to face him. Her eyes, usually filled with fire and determination, were now clouded with doubt. "I've always known that this empire, my people, would demand sacrifices, but I never imagined it would come to this." Liam frowned, unsure of what she meant. "You fought for this empire your whole life. You can't give up now." Zariha shook her head, her eyes distant. "It's not about giving up, Liam. It's about something much bigger than that. I've spent my whole life preparing to lead, but I never expected that I would have to make a choice like this." Liam stayed, quiet, waiting for her to continue. Zariha took a deep breath, her voice steady but full of emotion. I can't keep fighting this war forever. I've been forced into a corner, and the only way to stop Verdun, really stop him, is for me to marry him. It's the only way to secure peace. Liam's heart skipped a beat. He had feared this moment, but hearing Zariha say it out loud made it real. She was considering marrying the man who had betrayed her, the man who had been using her as a pawn in his quest for power. No, Liam said, his voice firm. You can't marry him. Not for peace. Not for anything. Zariha looked at him, her expression a mix of frustration and sadness. You don't understand, Liam. If I refuse, my people will suffer. The empire will collapse. Verdun will have the power, and there will be nothing left for us. Liam stepped forward, his voice full of conviction. But you're more than just a symbol. You're a leader, Zariha. You can find another way. We can fight him. We've already come so far together. Zariha's eyes softened, but the weight of the decision was still heavy on her. And what if it's not enough? What if we lose everything? What if the empire falls apart because I couldn't make the hard choice? Liam's heart ached as he looked at her. He had never seen Zariha so vulnerable, so unsure of herself. It was clear that this was the hardest decision of her life. Zariha, you can't sacrifice yourself like this. You don't have to carry this burden alone. We'll find a way together. You've fought so hard for your people, but you don't have to lose yourself in the process. For a moment, there was silence between them, the tension thick in the air. Zariha closed her eyes, her shoulders slumping slightly. I've always believed that I could protect my people. But now I'm not sure if I can protect them without giving up everything I am. Liam reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You are not alone, Zariha. You never were. You don't have to give yourself away to save them. Zariha looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. She seemed to be looking for something, some sign that he understood. For a long moment, their eyes locked, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. The weight of her responsibility was still there, but in that moment, she wasn't just the princess and the leader. She was a person, someone who had been carrying the burden of a galaxy on her shoulders but was now realizing she didn't have to do it alone. I don't know what to do, Liam, Zariha said quietly. But I do know that I trust you. Liam's heart surged at her words. He hadn't expected this, but somehow it felt right. Then trust me, he said, his voice steady. We'll fight together. We'll find a way to stop Verdun without you sacrificing yourself. Zariha nodded, the weight in her eyes slowly beginning to lift. For the first time, she seemed to believe that there was a way forward that didn't require her to lose everything. It wouldn't be easy. And the road ahead was still fraught with danger, but together they could face whatever came next. We'll do this together, Zariha whispered, a hint of resolve returning to her voice. No matter what happens, we'll do this together. Liam gave her a reassuring smile, feeling the bond between them strengthen. This was no longer just about politics or power. It was about standing together, supporting each other, and fighting for what they both believed in. As they walked back toward the war room, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that this moment had changed everything. The future of the empire was still uncertain, but for the first time Zariha had chosen a path that didn't involve sacrificing herself. And that made all the difference. The battle was over, and silence had fallen over the capital. The streets, once alive with the sounds of clashing forces, were now eerily quiet. The victory had come at a great cost, but in the end, Zariha had triumphed. Prince Verdun's forces had been pushed back, and the traitor Commander Rathar had been captured. The empire was safe for now, but the war wasn't the only thing that had changed. Liam stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light over the skyline. The city was beginning to rebuild, the damage from the battle starting to heal. But for Liam, it wasn't just the physical scars that would take time to heal. It was the emotional ones, the things he had seen, the choices they had made, and the journey that had brought him here. He wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere along the way he had stopped being just a soldier. He had stopped seeing Zariha as the princess he was sworn to protect. She had become something more, a partner, someone he had fought alongside, someone whose struggles he had come to understand. As Liam stood lost in thought, he felt a presence behind him. He turned to see Zariha standing in the doorway, her eyes thoughtful but calm. She was dressed simply, without the armor or battle attire she had worn during the fight. She looked every bit the leader she was. But there was a softness to her, now a piece that hadn't been there before. "Liam," Zariha said, her voice soft but steady. "I wanted to thank you." Liam smiled, though it wasn't one of triumph. "You don't have to thank me, Zariha. We did this together." Zariha stepped closer, her gaze never leaving him. "I know, but without you, I don't think I would have been able to see beyond my own fear. You helped me find a way out of the darkness." Liam's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected her to say that, and for a moment he didn't know how to respond. All he had ever known was duty, responsibility, and survival. But here, in this moment, he realized that what he had done for Zariha had been more than just fulfilling his mission. It had been about something deeper, a bond that had formed between them, a connection that had changed them both. "Zariha," Liam said quietly, taking a step toward her. "We've both changed. I never thought that I'd be standing here, like this, but now, I don't want to be anywhere else." Zariha's eyes softened, her lips curving into a small but genuine smile. "Neither do I." For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of the past few days hanging between them. There had been so much pain, so many sacrifices, but in the end they had come out stronger. The war had been won, but the real victory had been the bond they had formed, a bond that no battle could break. "We've both been through so much," Zariha continued, her voice quieter now. "I've had to make decisions I never thought I would. And you've been by my side through it all. I never imagined that we would end up here, but now I can't imagine being without you." Liam looked at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of admiration and affection. He had seen the fire in her eyes when she had led her people, and he had witnessed the vulnerability she had allowed him to see. In the midst of the chaos, he had come to realize that it wasn't just the princess he had come to care for. It was the person she had become in the face of adversity. "I feel the same way," Liam said, his voice low but full of sincerity. "You've shown me what it means to fight for something greater than myself. I would follow you anywhere." Zariha's smile deepened, and she stepped even closer, the distance between them narrowing. "And I would follow you, Liam. You've proved that it's not about titles or power. It's about the people we choose to stand beside." The quiet intimacy of the moment was broken by the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. They turned to see one of Zariha's advisors, Elias, walking toward them with a respectful bow. "Your Highness, Commander," Elias said, his tone formal but respectful. "The Council is ready for your meeting. They are eager to discuss the future of the Empire." Zariha nodded, her gaze lingering on Liam for a moment longer. "Thank you, Elias. We'll be there shortly." As Elias left, Zariha turned back to Liam, her expression serious. "There's still much to be done. The Empire needs rebuilding, and there are many decisions to be made. But for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can face those decisions without fear." Liam smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known he was looking for. "We'll do it together," he said. "You're not alone in this, Zariha." She nodded, her confidence returning. "No, I'm not, and that means everything." As they walked toward the council room side by side, Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. The battle had been fierce, but it had been worth it. Zariha had shown him the strength of leadership, and he had shown her the power of standing together. Now, as they faced the future, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it as partners, united in their fight for a better tomorrow. And for the first time in a long while, both of them felt like they had truly found their place in the world.